Out of all the shows I'm currently watching, I'd say I'm the most invested in 3 of them, and at face value, it doesn't seem like they have too much in common. Every week I'm donning my detective cap and magnifying glass of Layton Mystery, releasing my inner Maho Shoujo of Cardcaptor Sakura, and of course joining in on the shonen hype that is yet another Boku no Hero exam arc. Despite being from wildly different genres and targeted to different demographics, kids, young girls, and young boys respectively, of which I am none, I can't help but think that there's a common thread shared between these shows that keep me wanting to return to them. Care to venture a guess as to what that is? Well, I think part of it is what you're doing right now. I think each one of these shows demands participation from the viewer in some way, and in doing so either increase enjoyability or curtail certain problems that similar shows might face. In a way, part of the show transcends what is simply happening on screen, operating within another dimension that leaves their audiences increasingly satisfied the more they watch. And what's interesting is that each show embodies the practices of participatory media in different ways and to different degrees. Let's start with Layton, because the way it involves participation is the most obvious. I mean, it's a video game adaptation, the medium that first comes to mind for most people when thinking of interacting with the form of media. You can clearly see the many ways that the TV show incorporates its source's video game elements. Jesper Juhl, video game theorist and game developer, briefly wrote about the process of translating stories from one medium to another. He says narratives can be split into a level of discourse, the telling of the story, and the story told. The story part then can be split into 2 parts: existence, actors and settings, and events, actions and happenings. A story can then be recognized by having the same existence with the same names and the same events. This is what we usually mean by talking of the same story. However, while Juhl focuses more so on the story side of things, Layton ends up also incorporating its source's discourse into its anime adaptation. While the game has a few unrelated puzzles strewn about for you to solve, it is mostly a point-and-click game where you must find clues in different locations. The adaptation works in a similar way, only that the clicking is done for you. Once all the clues have been gathered, it breaks the 4th wall and asks you what you can come up with given what you know, and almost challenges you to beat Katari at her own game. This kind of interplay between viewer and show is something that is rarely seen, and adds an extra level of engagement to great effect. In a sense, you're almost forced to be invested, as long as you're actively participating with its narrative. At first glance, it's a very kids show kind of idea, reminiscent of things like Blue's Clues and Dora the Explorer, but you'll come to find that this level of engagement allows the show to ramp up its emotional moments. Rather than being child's play, most of the mysteries had me scratching my head in confusion, only for some to move me to tears. And I attribute some of that to its deceptively simple method of allowing the viewer to quote-unquote play along. However, this is only one way participation can be used, and a fairly unique one at that. Other times its presence can be quite subtle. When talking about anime structure, there's a large contingent of people who have gripes with shows that are episodic. Common complaints include lack of plot progression, resulting in reduced stakes and a feeling of, why does this matter exactly? With Cardcaptor Sakura being largely structured in typical Maho Shoujo Monster of the Week format, you would think it would fall victim to staleness, but this wasn't the case for me. And I think the magic is in the cards. You see, by having a goal to strive towards every episode, you get a steady feeling of progress that may be lacking in other episodic shows. In addition, the cards add a meta component for the viewer to play around with. Can you guess what card it will be? How can Sakura best use the card she currently has at her disposal to capture it? And how well does this new card synergize with the one she currently has, assuming she just doesn't use Windy for the upteenth time? In a sense, this provides a sort of mini-mystery each episode, and a way to connect with Sakura as a character. There were many times where Sakura came up with a ramshackled plan that didn't quite occur to me, leading to those magical moments where you're actually proud of a fictional character. While Layton and Cardcaptor's participation is largely contained within the show itself, with some it becomes a phenomenon. I'm actually relatively new to watching shows seasonally, but it seems as though there's always that one must-watch of the season. Not necessarily because it's any good, but because that's what everyone is talking about. These are the Darling and the Frankses, the Erased, and the ReZeros of the world. A lot of people would argue that getting caught up in the discussion and experience of Mayo Iga was the best part of the show. What that says about the show, I'll leave up to you. That takes me to Boku no Hero. It has this aspect of participatory media for sure, where its existence and popularity demands commentary. You may personally disagree with this, but just take a look at anywhere anime is discussed, and you'll find it there. Whether that be thousands of comments on Reddit, or thousands of videos on YouTube, sometimes seemingly on a single channel. And with shonen shows, discussion can sometimes go one level deeper. Past all of the typical comments, you'll find the bread and butter of shonen fans alike: theory crafting. It's similar to what I discussed earlier of Cardcaptor Sakura, just taken to new heights. Speculation drives these discussions forward, and there's a raw sort of excitement to be felt as people talk enthusiastically about esoteric terms like power scaling and possible events to come. While it's not my thing personally, it's certainly a large source of enjoyment for some people. Some say we are now living in a participatory culture, and it's hard to disagree. Much of the flack Netflix is getting from anime fans is because their binge-watch model pushes back against this idea, robbing people of the opportunity to engage and discuss with others from week to week. But as you can see with shows like Layton and Cardcaptor Sakura, there can be more to it than simply commenting on online forums. I encourage you to try to lose yourself for a bit and lean into shows that encourage outside participation, whether that means going frame by frame for symbolism or just arguing who best girl is. You might find yourself having more fun along the way. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for more content. I know this video is a bit delayed. I'm trying for a more consistent schedule, so stay with me. And of course, if anything I said was wrong, I'm sorry. I must have stuttered.